Basta! Enough, says Gareth Bale, or at least that's what AS says. Is coming out of the Bale camp, of course, benched against Bruges in the Champions League. That being the quote-unquote final straw. His agent Jonathan Barnett now shopping Bale around to some of the biggest clubs in Europe. For a little bit more perspective, let's welcome Gab Marcotti into the show. Gab, given the latest, what do you think the likelihood is that Bale will leave Real Madrid in the January window?
Honestly, Seb, this whole thing is absolutely idiotic. Now he says basta. Now when he's actually played most of the games this season for Real Madrid and he's getting applauded off the pitch by the fans at the Bernabeu, he says basta and supposedly wants to leave. But all summer long when they tried every which way to sell him and he just wouldn't move and he turned down every single move and wasn't willing to take a pay cut to go anywhere, now we're supposed to believe this? I'm not buying any of it. I don't know what goes through that man's mind. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he was simply annoyed at being left out against Bruges. But I just don't see why, if he wanted to leave, if he didn't want to leave 2 months ago, when the manager didn't want him to stay, when the media were hounding him, when nobody seemed to like him, now all of a sudden, when he's, except for the Bruges game, he's generally playing and scoring and getting plaudits, now suddenly he wants to leave. So, no.
Gab says no. What do you say? You got a problem with the timing of it?
Yeah.
Why? He's been benched. He's clearly performed well. Now he's benched in the Champions League. Of course he's fed up.
The man's just pointed it out for you. He spent a period with Zidane at the end of his first tenure where he was clearly out of favour. Even when he came off the bench in the Champions League final and scored that great goal, he knew he was always going to be on the bench and he was frustrated, and his comments told you that after it. He spent all summer being hawked around by Real Madrid to clubs that could afford these wages, but for whatever reason it didn't happen. And he said himself he would leave under his own terms. And now he's played most of... And I get the frustration at not playing against Club Bruges and not so much not been playing, but apparently not been told anything about it. But then he's back in the following game. So I don't know. I don't see why all of a sudden, by one game, all of a sudden you're going to be out of the club. I don't get it.
Real quick, Gab, can you clarify this for us? Because I know it sounds kind of crazy, but this is coming from reputable sources, right?
Yeah, I think, look, the sources can only report what they hear. What I'm telling you is that it doesn't make any sense to me why all of a sudden Gareth Bale would go and change his mind. Maybe he hit himself in the head with one of his golf clubs and whatever. I honestly don't know. What we do know is right now, as of October, the same way people weren't going to pay for him in the summer, they're not going to pay for him now. So I don't see what would have changed after one game against the bench. On the bench. And by the way, we're not talking about the Champions League final. We're talking about Bruges here. We're talking about a team that they should have comfortably beat, and they certainly expected to comfortably beat. So that's why, if it's something he said in anger after a game or confided to people, that's fine. But you know what? I feel pretty confident, relatively confident, or I'd be very shocked if he hadn't changed his mind by this point and said, no, you know what? I got a pretty good thing going here, and they actually seem to like me.
At the top of the segment, I mentioned Manchester United. Every time we talk about Manchester United, we talk about how bad their squad is. Why wouldn't you make Gareth Bale your priority if he's out there in your Manchester United?
Because you have to learn from the mistake that you made with Alexis Sanchez, thinking that you were going to get an aging superstar that somehow was going to revitalize his career with you in Manchester United. And because he goes against the supposed plan of going into a youth movement. Well, this wouldn't be a youth movement. This is recycling a player that we think could be productive for you. We think is talented enough to do so. But we also know, not think, we know he can be brittle physically in terms of his injuries. And so you are asking for it if you're Manchester United in overpaying in the transfer window in January and then getting a player who perhaps may not even be available to you because of a history of injuries.
Why would Gareth Bale expose himself to the mediocrity of Manchester United at this moment in time? Because
he's fed up?
Well, but he's only going to face the same problems that Paul Pogba faces, is that be a talented talisman who is finding it heavy going to try and showcase his clear talents within this framework. And so why, I don't get why. I could understand if United were interested in him and it was under Sir Alex Ferguson, they were flying, they were competing on all fronts, Europe, domestically. That's very enticing for any player. But Manchester to leave Real this moment in time with 90 games, team that will be top six. That sense either.
Winter's come, golf in Madrid. I get it now.
Well, better not come here then. Golf.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.